How is Jesus a Davidic king? Well, he says back in the text in Jeremiah, he says, I will cause a righteous branch to sprout up for David. And that means that the Messiah that the Jews were expecting was going to be a king in the line of David. That's what we mean by a Davidic king, a king in the bloodline of King David. That it was common for kings to want to leave their kingdoms to their sons, usually to their oldest son. And the idea in a perfect situation would be that that oldest son would leave it to their oldest son. And it would create a bloodline so that if ever the kingdom were lost, as in the case of Judah in this time, that they're under Roman oppression in the New Testament times, that if they come under oppression of another nation, and then the question arises as they gain their independence, who gets to be king, they go and they trace the person through the bloodline. And so they're waiting here. This Messiah, this anointed one that they're looking forward to, is a Davidic king, one in the line of David. And he was supposed to come, this Messiah, this king, from David's line, specifically because of a promise that was made to David. They weren't just abstractly picking some king out of history. No, this was actually a promise that was made to David in 2 Samuel 7:16, where the Lord says that your house and kingdom will endure forever before me, and your throne will be established forever. This is sometimes called the Davidic Covenant. If you go and you read 2 Samuel 7, there's a lot more to this covenant than just what's been written here, but this is the covenant promise that David will forever reign on his throne. And you go, well, how is that going to really be forever? Well, as we come into the question of the coming of the Messiah, the coming of the King of the Jews, we know that Jesus comes out of King David's line. And we know that from a number of different perspectives, but look what Luke says in Luke 1:26 and 27. Luke is going to recognize that Jesus is, and he uses the specific words that Jeremiah used that the covenant used in 2 Samuel, the house of David. Look what he says. The angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth to a virgin engaged to a man named Joseph of the house of David. And he didn't have to say that. He didn't have to say that he was of the house of David. He could have just said, in the line of King David. He didn't have to say anything about David at all. And you always have to ask, why is this detail here? And I think the detail, house of David, is specifically there in Luke's recollection because he's recalling the covenant made with David. That your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me, and your throne will be established forever. And so he's using that house of David language. Further, if you look forward, and this will be helpful if you have your slides in front of you, there's two genealogies of Jesus, one in Luke and one in Matthew. And let's look first at the Luke one, and I'm going to take out some blocks of it because it's lengthy, but Luke 23 through 38, Jesus was thought to be the son of Joseph. And then Luke lists a bunch of descendants. Then he says the son of David, and then he lists a bunch more descendants. The son of Abraham, and then a bunch more descendants. The son of Adam, the son of God. And what's really interesting in the genealogy is he's pinpointing certain people. David, Abraham, Adam, God, right? As he goes down through the genealogy to show the significant people that are in not just David's line, but in Jesus' line. And I would say that most significant here is David, because it's David that the promise of kingship was made to. And then something we'll talk about here in a minute, but there's also tie here to Jesus' deity, because as you get down, you find out that there's something intrinsic to being a child of Adam, right? Son of Adam, son of God. And there's something about humans that makes us different from the animals there, if you will, that makes us divine in a sense, because we are not just children of flesh, children of Adam, but we are sons of God in Adam. And so there's something unique there where Luke is gonna start to highlight, and this is going to come up more, he's going to start to highlight not just Jesus' human kingship, but also his divine kingship. Look at Matthew's genealogy, Matthew 1, 1 through 16, and I'm going to do the same thing and take some people out. Matthew writes, an account of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. And then he goes into the genealogy. Notice that he highlights those two people. He wants to make sure you know he's the son of Abraham, but he's especially the son of David. He goes on, Abraham fathered Isaac, and then he lists a bunch of other descendants. Jesse fathered King David. Notice he doesn't just say David there. He's like, by the way, King David. He's making sure that that's obvious. Other descendants are listed. And then Jacob fathered Joseph. And that's the Joseph and Mary Joseph there at the end of the genealogy. The husband of Mary who gave birth to Jesus, who is called the Messiah. And so you can see it there that he's creating this link between King David and the Messiah. Or you might say he actually creates that link between King David and Joseph. And there's some interesting discussion and scholarship about this, but there are many who make a compelling argument. I don't think we can prove this, by the way, but there are many who make a compelling argument that if you were to trace the genealogies from David down to Joseph, that Joseph would actually be the first heir to the throne. Now the problem is Israel isn't a free nation at this time. They're under Roman occupation, and so they don't get to pick their king according to their tradition. But there's many who believe that Joseph, if they could be free from Roman oppression, that Joseph wouldn't have been a poor carpenter, but would have been king over all Israel. Now I can't prove that, but I do think it's interesting the way that Matthew puts this together, that Jacob fathered Joseph, the husband of Mary, who gave birth to Jesus, who is called the Messiah, the anointed king. And so there's a sense in which Jesus really might have been not just the divine chosen heir to the throne, but he also might be in the physical world the actual heir to the throne of Israel.